Welcome to Drams and Dragons. Also, welcome to the ninth floor of the dungeon. Kill, kill, kill. I don't know.
Gus lost his notes.
Yeah, I lost my notes. I had a whole thing, and I can't
Uh,
remember the whole thing, but it was something like that. Approximately, roughly.
I think that fits the tone of the book, though. It's kind of perfect. Everything's,
Everything's chaos.
yeah,
It's
stuff's hitting
going
the fan.
crazy. Yeah,
And I don't think
shit's
that's a spoiler. I think they set
happening.
us up pretty well for that before, right?
Yeah, I mean, the book is called, we're going to be talking about this in much more detail as we go, but the book is the book seven of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. The book is called This Inevitable Ruin, and it is, as the rest are, by Matt Dinniman.
Yes. And I'm pretty
Yeah.
excited about this one.
But first, I don't know about you. I am going to do a little whiskey tasting.
I'm just gonna have more of my storm.
More they're just gonna drink your way through the storm bottle.
You
That's fine.
know,
I've got
it's
I no, I get it. You've got we got the holidays coming up. There's like we said last time, not a big whiskey budget. That's all
yeah, and I don't
good.
have a Costco near my house, so I can't go and
Yeah. Well, I ran out. I have this policy usually. I only usually get bottles added to my selection at home. Um like birthdays, holidays usually,
Mhm.
or so if there's an occasion or something, or if I finish a bottle,
That's a great
I replace it.
policy. Yeah,
So
that's smart.
I finished because we've been doing a lot of cooking, and it's the holiday season, so there's a lot of there's some booze going into eggnog occasionally. So we finished the Old Forester 100 proof that I had. So I got another Old Forester.
Ooh,
I got the Old Forester 1897 bottled in bond. They have this series of bourbons that they do
hmm,
uh, that are basically modeled on old fashioned recipes. They have several. They
I've
have like
heard of that.
a
Cool.
prohibition era one. They've got like in 1900, I don't know, 1907 or something like that. I don't remember the exact years. Doesn't matter. This one, 1897. It spoke. The bottle spoke to me
Mhm.
uh, at the store. It's 100 proof, which I always appreciate. And I did open it up and crack it a little bit. Crystal and I tried it, so I do know that it is pretty tasty already. But
Hmm.
I will do a quick tasting, give some notes, and then we can move on to the book.
For the viewers. So I googled the bottle here, and it's a sexy bottle. It speaks to
All
me
right,
too.
right. It's got
Yeah,
a
it's
nice
got that.
shape.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very pleasing shape. That cool green label thing on top too.
yeah.
It's a good marketing too because it has 100 proof on it, but it makes it kind of look like it's a gold medal a little bit. So it's like, and they have fancy cursive writing above it.
That's a very nice little bottle here.
Yeah, whoever
And
designed that, yeah.
over the years, I've had a number, just a few of the different offerings from Old Forester. I have always liked their stuff from the first time I tried it. It's got a lot of flavor. It's not like a weeded bourbon. I'm not a fan of weeded bourbons very much. They're very sweet. They're very plain. I like stuff that has a little rye in it. You know,
Mm.
it's bourbon, so it's mostly corn mash. Old Forester adds some rye to give it some different kinds of notes, and then they add a little bit of malted barley, just a little bit, tiny bit. Um, and I've just always appreciated that. And it's sort of a classic old school bourbon brand.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited
Yeah.
to start drinking more. I'm a bourbon newbie. And yeah, you've gotten me pretty excited about the Old Forester brands there, especially if they got cool callbacks to ancient times here. It's got a lovely color to it, huh?
Yeah, it's got a very nice color to it. Um,
Ooh, dark.
yeah, it's quite dark. I assume they're adding color to this. It doesn't say anywhere on the bottle they don't. It's a relatively inexpensive brand in general. It's not bottom of the shelf, but it's you probably find it on the same shelf you'd find your Jack Daniels, your Bullet, your those kinds of brands, right? So, and just right off the nose, I get caramel, vanilla. I get spice like a
Mhm.
like a nutmeg. I get a sort of vague fruitiness. It's not quite appley, but it's got a very nice kind of holiday smell to it. A very nice holiday smell. Like it smells like honestly, it smells like the same smell profile that you would find in eggnog. So if you added this to eggnog, you would just be like making eggnog, or basically like
It's eggnog, eggnog.
doubling up on the same
Huh.
profile, essentially. Very nice smell, and from experience, it does actually pair very well with eggnog. So,
A holiday recommendation there.
but it's definitely got some fruitiness to it, and not. Let me see if I can pick out which fruit I'm smelling.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is a little green apple. It's very nice. It's very light. It's a very light, sort of bright smell to go with those holiday smells. Yeah, and it's funny. The more it sort of opens up, the more I actually am getting that sort of almost green, like candied apple smell, just a little
Cool.
bit. It's not as much as like a green spot, which is like smack you in the face with those, but with that smell. But this is just sort of subtly there. It's very nice. For a very affordable bottle of whiskey, this has a lot of smells going on. Really, really like the smell on it. And now I'm going to try a sip. Mm, very spicy. I feel like that's that rye coming in.
Mhm.
Very spicy. It does feel like a 50 percenter when you drink it. This is not one that's like, it's not like horribly harsh or something, but it's not super smooth.
Mhm.
It's definitely, you do get that 50% alcohol. It is stronger for it. I get some of that candy apple. I get both the caramel and the vanilla.
Mhm.
Like sometimes you have a whiskey and the taste and the smell are like totally different.
Yeah.
That is not the case here. This one smells and tastes very similar.
Hmm.
It's very nice that way. You're like, you smell it and you're like, you taste it. It tastes exactly the same. It tastes exactly like it smells.
That's kind of nice.
It is. I mean, there are
Consistency.
some other notes there. There are some other notes there on the palate, but the predominant flavors were all the same things that I smelled, which is
Gotcha.
really nice. I actually really appreciate that.
Dang it, now I want bourbon.
That time I actually picked up a little like almost molasses, like brown
Ooh.
sugar molasses kind of thing going on.
Yeah, that's my question for you. Is as you're drinking it, is it doing anything to the
Mm.
bite of it, or yeah, or any new flavors coming out? So molasses coming out.
Got a little molasses out. Yeah. And it gets easier to drink. Like
Cool.
the 50%. Like the first sip was a little bit alcohol forward.
Yeah, you got to shock them taste buds a little bit. You know?
Sometimes you do. Sometimes it takes a sip or two for you to start to get past that, the essentially the alcohol burn, and start to be able to pick out all these flavors. This one's fairly sweet on the palate.
Okay.
I think a lot of bourbons are like that. Not all
Mhm.
bourbons, but a lot of them are. And I just think that's the nature of
Yeah.
liquor, corn mash.
Yeah, that's what I associate with it. Yeah, so I'm curious about this one. If this one is a recipe from yesteryear, I'm wondering what's coming out that's kind of distinctive about this compared to other bourbons.
Yeah. So I'd say that little bit of green apple, that little
Mm.
fruitiness. I don't usually get that in bourbons, man. I don't.
Ah,
I usually am getting in bourbons. I'm usually getting like those like really caramel, oaky,
vanilla, you know.
vanilla, uh, sweetness, and maybe you get some cinnamon, some nutmeg, some of those spices. It's kind of similar profile, but there's this extra element that it has that I don't normally get, and I didn't get in the other Old Foresters that I've had.
Cool.
Right, which is very nice, and to me it elevates this one to a really good place. I really
Nice.
like this. I really like this. It's got a nice long, warm, but not heartburn finish. And I'll take another sip here and see if I can get anything else. And you got that sort of sweet caramel molasses thing going. It sort of transforms into sort of spices and oak and that warmth. And then there's something on the back end I'm trying to kind of identify. That's it's not tobacco, it's not chocolate. There's something in the finish. Just trying to identify. And it's nice. It's pleasant. But it's not overpowering or strong, but it's just sort of chill. Like, but it's a certain flavor that sometimes I get in bourbon, just in general, not just this bourbon. Like good bourbons.
Mhm.
Maybe I just don't have the words to describe it.
Yeah. Was it tobacco like? So I think I know the flavor profile you're talking about there.
It's like from the char of the wood,
Mm,
you know. It's not smoke because it's not like peat smoke, but it's like from the char of the barrels. And it kind of reminds me of smoke, actually, even
yeah.
though it's not smoke, you know what I mean? Like,
You
even though
think
it's
they're
not
like
like peat smoke.
charcoal kind of filtered, maybe?
No, no, no. I mean, like you charcoal when they make bourbon, right? They take the oak barrel, right, and they burn
Yeah.
the inside, right, of the barrel, and it brings out, it both protects it and then also brings out other flavors. and
Hmm.
and I find this with bourbon quite often is like you get this sort of caramely notes, and then you get these sort of charred notes often in the finish.
Hmm.
And I don't know if there's a name for it, but
Yeah.
I definitely get that in this bourbon particularly. And I've had bourbons
Cool.
where you don't get that at all. It's just, it just goes down and it's gone. But in this one, it definitely has that characteristic of that lasting sort of long flavor profile. This is a
Cool.
very long, very pleasant finish.
Nice.
Do I recommend Old Forester 1897? Absolutely. Great price point for a very good bourbon. Easy to come by, even if it weren't a very affordable bottle. I would say this is punching above its weight.
Cool.
It's a genuinely good bottle of bourbon.
Good eggnog pair.
And I think the cool thing about this one, yeah, you can pair it in eggnog, you can put it in cocktails, you can cook with it. It doesn't have any flavor profile where you'd be like, I don't want to put that in my baked goods or whatever. Like, it's good for that too. And it's at a price point where you're not like, oh my God, I can't put this in cooking. Like, it's genuinely a versatile, delicious bottle. You can sip it too, because it's great straight. I haven't had it on the rocks. Maybe it'd probably be good there too. I'm just saying it's a good friggin' bottle of whiskey for not terribly much money.
I want to go get a bottle. Oh,
This is a solid fucking bottle.
cool.
So,
So,
talking Dungeon Crawler Carl, Book 7, This Inevitable Ruin, Matt Dinniman, the ninth floor of the World Dungeon, the Faction Wars.
yep.
If you've been following the book series, if you've been listening to our episodes and for some reason haven't decided to read these things, I won't judge you.
I'll judge you a little bit.
All right.
Gus is
Uh,
nicer than I am.
I don't think that's true. I think you're plenty nice.
Oh, well,
But
thank you.
yeah, so we are picking up. If you've been following, we're picking up where the last one left off, exactly as they usually are, exactly where the last one left off. The last one was this weird, crazy floor with cards and a horrible spider lady essentially taking over Carl. Just to recap a little bit, and you can go back and listen to the whole episode. You can go read book 6. We did the episode on that a couple months ago. Woo. There is a lot in this book kind of unpacked. There's almost at the beginning, there's almost like a recap chapter, like
Yeah.
prologue thing where they like recap where we're at.
Yeah, and it's done in a fun tongue-in-cheek way, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is a good I was very happy to see that right off the bat, Dinniman's kind of like jaunty, tongue-in-cheek approach was still there. And of course it's what's the word when it's acerbic, but in a funny way. Um
Yeah.
it's still like as soon as you open the thing, I mean, just the cover itself, and then when you open to the first page, it's like coming home, man. This is a dungeon crawler Carl book, and it feels good. Like, thank goodness.
It is a very comfortable thing to slide back into the next one.
I mean, stylistically, there's probably some stuff that'd be kind of fun to talk about. The tone is the first thing I noticed right off the bat. Like, it's Matt Dinniman.
Mm-hmm.
The chaos point mentioned earlier was interesting because it's complex, and most of his books are complex. Yeah, man, I had this impression that with this book, it was almost like an author challenge that he took to himself to manage a more broad thing.
Every single one of these books, some books have had sort of slightly more narrow scopes, some books have had slightly bigger scopes, but over time, each book generally has expanded the scope of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like book by book after book after book after book, each book has become bigger than the last one, crazier than the last one. And this one is not an exception to that. This one is more insane and bigger and crazier than all the books in the series that came before that. And for the first time, I am not sure that that was better.
Mm.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, yeah, we might be on the same page with that one. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
curious. Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't want to spoil too much, but I do feel that I can mention you're halfway through or whatever. I don't think I could say this without spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten to the point where he has so many threads to manage. And now, on top of all of the threads he's got from the previous book, from the whole series that are continuing down into this book, all those threads to manage, he's also got armies to manage. And I mean this both in terms of Carl, the main character, but also Matt Dinniman, the author. And I think it's gotten to his limit to manage all these things, and then just a little bit past it. It's gotten to the point where there are things which he's going on about, which don't seem like they're actually that important to have gone on about, like strategic decisions or tactical decisions or organizational decisions that Carl is making for his army, things which he goes into great length to describe and detail in describing, which perhaps aren't very interesting and aren't important to the story. Previously, most of those details ended up mattering.
So the complexity, it's the usual amount of complexity, and he's doing the same thing where it's at every level, right? It's operationally, it's interpersonal, it's grand scale stuff, like macro level things going on, and then micro level things, and like little updates and achievements and little items that come into play later. And I think maybe I don't know, I'm feeling gracious because I'm still in the middle of it, but the impression I get is that the chaos of the battlefield changes it a little bit. And Dinniman has characters and situations in there. It's almost like he's written in so many Deus Machina type characters and events where he can almost pick and choose. Like if there's something going on with the plot of the book, he's got something in there that can be like, actually, this happened.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to get that impression with it a little bit because, yeah, and there's a build up to it where it's like, okay, this is the plan, guys. And you're like, all right, we're doing the Dinniman. It's getting complicated. And then he's like, haha, just kidding. It didn't happen. Or something different happened. And there's a bit of retconning in the book, and not unpleasant retconning.
Well, which thing are you referring to?
Well, in the beginning. So let's see, how is this without I really don't want to spoil it for people, but
like if it's in the beginning of the book, go for it, because come on, guys, you should have read the first 6, right?
Yeah. And I'm just kidding. I won't judge you if you haven't, but I will judge you if you ignore my warning.
Spoiler alert.
This is a spoiler. And I'm okay with it. I don't think retconning is a bad word, but like in the first couple chapters, basically you learned that something happened in book 6 that we didn't have a perspective for, and he added something in. He was like, oh, by the way, when you thought this was happening, this was actually happening. Carl has an extra scene that didn't show up.
Yeah.
And that kind of theme, I've noticed that there's a lot going on that's not being narrated. It's got the same level of complexity and detail that everything else does.
Yeah. Well, that as far as retcons are concerned, that didn't bother me because there are reasons it didn't show up, and it made sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it also,
he did it well.
He did it at the beginning of the book, as opposed to 3/4 in where he's like, just kidding. Right. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a couple others too, like some of the sponsors and how they're connected to Propotente type stuff that were kind of like, oh, and none of this is negative, by the way. It's just kind of stuff I'm processing. Like I love the extra scenes, like you get kind of a window into past crawlers and what their like final moments were like.
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn that some of them are kind of still hanging around. And
I actually liked those scenes where they're
great.
Those because they're not scenes, sorry, they're like little mini chapters, right? Where he cuts away from the action that's going on, and you get a picture into the past of these crawlers who are other anarchist cookbook, edition authors like Carl is, and you get a sort of window into them, and then it gives their status, and some of them are with him in the dungeon currently in this book, and some of them are dead, and some of them are in other situations. So it's actually, I thought that was really cool. That's not the kind of, those aren't the kinds of threads or the sort of the stuff that's too much for me. I actually really like those. I thought those were great.
And yeah, and I don't want to give the impression that they're too much for me, or that I didn't like them. I just, I think for me, the point of all that I'm saying is that part of that chaotic kind of, maybe like it's starting to get a little bigger than is manageable. Keeping all that stuff in mind, it's just, I like it because I think it plays in with the game itself. The game is off the rails. The AI has introduced game breaking additions constantly. And so, yeah, it's one of those where I can't decide if it's purposeful, like if that's the way he's just decided to write it, because that's kind of how the AI is running things, or if it's one of those where it's getting almost a little too big for the structure that it's on. We had a live chat. We could ask the live chat.
Well, if we had a live chat, it would probably be sad and
quiet. No. It'd be like our moms hanging out.
Yeah.
I love you guys. I don't know what you're talking about, but
you're the handsomest podcast at school.
I love your flannels. We're both wearing flannels, by the way, for the listeners. It was not coordinated. And we're Christmas, although, I don't know, yours is yellow, but in the light, it looks orange.
Mine's more like orangey brown.
Yeah. It looks,
it's like the color of this bourbon. It's a bourbon colored. See, look at this. Look at
this. Matching.
I'm matching my bourbon.
Nice. That should be your official podcast shirt. Yeah. If you're drinking bourbon, it's your bourbon jacket.
Absolutely.
Cool.
It's super great. I like this flannel a lot. So
I like this flannel themed tangent we've gone on. This is nice.
More flannel. I think Dungeon Crawler Carl needs more flannel.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't think it has. Maybe a couple lumberjack references in there. Maybe had it, but
I mean, he's from the Pacific Northwest. He got all these other like Pacific Northwestern characters around him, and not one of them. He didn't. Like, Matt Dinniman didn't make fucking one of them like a lumberjack, or at least like a fucking flannel wearing like grunge guy. Yep. Like, really?
Yeah.
No, couldn't. Not even one. Okay.
That's our new main criticism of Matt Dinniman.
Oh man. Not one of them was from fucking Aberdeen. Like, fucking, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that I don't feel like it's a criticism. It's kind of just something I'm noticing with it. But you'd said earlier, it kind of feels like it's getting a little, just a tad over his skill kind of level.
Not even over his skill. It's just I just think it's gotten too big. And so he's there's a lot that like isn't coming around, where he's giving a lot of detail about, characters and events and specifically the thing that I have the biggest complaint about is, army organization. He's like talking about, oh, well, these guys are doing these things and these other guys are doing these things. And it's like, none of that fucking matters. Like which army regiment. I mean, it's not regiments, but it's like however they're organizing it, like these different units or whatever, like doesn't actually matter.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter. And you got like a million characters, and you got a bunch of characters that he introduced like gobs of characters, a lot of whom are NPCs or these like slug guys or whatever.
Former crawlers.
I mean, the former crawlers, like that kind of makes sense in some cases, right? But there's just huge numbers of characters he's added. Characters he's giving detail on briefly, but there's so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just hard to follow. It's also, in many cases, not that interesting. Mm-hmm. For a book series where like everything has been like, or most of it has been super engaging. for me, this one got a little bit boring in sections. And then, of course, then there's the section where a whole bunch of shit comes together and there's this huge battle and this fight scene and this craziness and all the shit you've come to expect.
Yeah.
It's an inconsistent book because there are parts that are just as wild and crazy and chaotic and fun
Yeah.
as ever. And in some cases, maybe even a little more so. And there's these big storylines resolving that have been going on for multiple books. And there are parts of it that are just amazing. And then there are parts of it where I'm just like, eh.
That's the one saving grace I think to that is Dinniman. He's very self aware of that. I think so. He'll have these comments. It's almost like with Donut. It's almost becoming. I feel like Donut's character is a little bit of a caricature of herself because her role is to basically like poke a hole in that system where the AI is rambling about something and going into details that no one needs to know. And then Donut chimes in with a little quip to make you go, haha, or something like that. Or, Carl will get sick of it. He'll be like, Jesus, what's with these long descriptions? And then the AI will get pissed at him. Fine. So I think there's a bit of I think there's self-awareness of that at least. But I think I'm with you on that though. I've noticed, especially with all the troop movements of battle, like I really appreciate that he is making the attempt to do that, which is again, I think it's one of those like self-author things. Like dude's writing it's a war book now. It's a book with battlefield movements and units and ranks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's a cool project to do. But yeah, thus far I haven't seen any like meaning, it's been kind of like,
that's not where his strength is. He should stick to his strengths. And he
have
has
a growth mindset, Gus, a growth mindset.
Yeah, but it's boring. Like I've read, not in general. I think there are parts of this book that are actually boring. There was some stuff in like book 3 where I was like, he could have skipped it. It's a lot of detail. But he even said in that book, don't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Right. At the beginning of the book, he's like, there's a lot of detail. You don't necessarily need to know it. Yeah. Well, he did it again, but he didn't warn us. There wasn't a warning at the beginning of the book that's like, oh, that armor shit, you don't need to know it.
Yeah,
but it's not his strength as an author. It's not what he's good at writing. He's good at writing the fights. He's good at writing the sort of characters and the sort of plot twists. And he's good at writing the humor, like the funny shit, when the AI,
I gotta admit, I skip over the army stuff now because it's like he's had to give a report on what the armies are doing after every event.
Yeah, but it's like most of a chapter sometimes, right? It's not like
it's kind of long.
It's long. It's not a little bit. It's a lot of it. Anyway,
the sense I get from it. Have you ever sat down? Like, remember when your kids were 5? And you sit down with them real serious, and you're like, okay, listen. Your prefrontal cortex is malfunctioning, right? It's not actually developed. And so you're making this decision, and what you need to do. And the kid is just sitting there, like thinking about
blah 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 blah.
That's kind of what I feel like. It's like, man, this is too. It's too in the weeds.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly a great way of putting it. It's too in the weeds. And I just wish you would have pulled back and cut some of that shit and not worried about it so much, and like just let us enjoy the ride that is Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, it's it's hard too because conversely, so I'm trying to look at maybe why he would have done it that way. I know, so the way I'm reading it, dear listeners, it's like a roller coaster, but you get these highs where you're just like you're learning some cool shit. You're learning about how these world building, your character revelations, character growth. It's really cool, and then it'll have a lull. It feels like it kind of gives you a break from it because it's at such a fast pace with those revelations and those things. I feel like if they just kept going, it'd be overwhelming, and it would take out some of the impact of some of them because it's like, oh, okay, another revelation. Oh, another. It's like reading loot box notifications over and over again. If you have too many in one spot, it's like, okay, I get it. But if you space them out a little bit, like he does, it gets a meaning. So I don't know. I feel like it might have been purposeful, and maybe he's, experimenting on how to make that work better. Maybe an editor could have watered that down a little bit, but
Like I'm sure he has an editor. I just know that like with editing, sometimes like especially with editing like a huge novel or something, right? Because it's the longest novel he's done, or like you're editing, and then you don't want to screw up what the person is writing, and you don't want to. It gets to the point sometimes I think where it's like, unless you're like it takes a really good editor to edit something like this and cut it down, and I don't know, maybe yeah, I don't know what his process is like, so I don't, yeah, I
yeah.
don't want to be like, oh, that edit, whatever editor he has sucks. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is the edited down version.
Yeah, right.
I don't
Yeah, what if
know.
it's all crazy?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, if we move on, I my general impressions so far. So I did a full reread before I started this one,
Yeah.
and it's a lot like the sixth book in its verbosity,
Yeah.
verbosity.
And
Yeah,
how much, yeah.
yeah, it's longer than you might think. It's longer than you expect. It might be a little bit longer than you're looking for.
Yeah.
Um, and but aside from that, I am just really enjoying the hell out of it. Um, and he's just got all these great scenes, man. I keep thinking about Robert Jordan. Whenever I read him, when I read a Robert Jordan book, there are certain scenes that he has that he
Mm-hmm.
writes that just stick out of my head. They're so cinematic and they're so just it's like you're there. And that's Dinniman's like superpower, man. Like there was this great scene with the with the princess of the Naga
Oh, yeah.
lady. It was just a real interesting scene,
You
just
talking about
where
the
a character,
scene? Oh, which scene?
just the one where she's looking at him.
Oh, yeah. That was a good
And you
scene.
just it just gets you curious, like what is she doing? Why is she doing that? And it's just and the way he describes Carl's reaction and the kind of the absurdity of the whole scene and he just writes these great scenes, man. And Propotente continues to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do. I don't know. Donut so far has like for my worry about the book, which is not turning out to be true, but my worry was that it would get so complicated that it would do what a lot of shows and books do, where the characters become caricatures.
Mm-hmm.
And the only character where I really feel like that's happening a little bit with might be Donut, because it seems like she's kind of been pushed aside. There's so many other plots and stuff going on.
Yeah.
Just haven't gotten a lot of Donut. She's just kind of become like the comedy relief or the
I'll
cat who
say
says something funny.
it, that is not a problem. It's not really a
Ah, cool.
spoiler. That is not a problem in the second half. Like, you're in the first half. Okay. Question. Have you had the fight with the Naga princess yet?
No.
No. Okay. You're probably close because today. Yeah. So uh the book changes quite a bit after that.
Okay. Oh wow. So I'm like right there.
And I actually, the first half, the part that you've read so far,
Mm-hmm.
um, I like it a lot more after that.
Okay.
So
Ooh.
there's where you are now, and then there's the big fight with the Naga princess, and among other things, shit gets fucking wild during that fight.
Cool.
And then from then on, like that fight, like you say, there's scenes that stick out in your mind.
Yeah.
That battle is one of those. It's like it's crazy. Like I still haven't
Cool.
like fully processed it because of course in like Matt Dinniman's normal sort of traditional style, more crazy shit happens before you have time to like really come to grips with all the shit that happened in that
Yeah, it really
fight and that
does.
scene. And then, I've liked the book more as it has gone on, um,
Cool.
as these storylines start resolving.
Good
As
to know because it's already great.
Yeah,
Like I'm already loving it.
yeah.
Um.
Well, I think you're gonna like it more and more as it goes.
Oh
Um,
boy.
so
Well, that's our podcast. I'm gonna continue reading my book here.
like, and
I
we're
know,
done. I
and
gotta
we're
go
done.
read more of this book.
I know.
I
I
gotta
do.
go
I have to
finish
sleep
this book.
tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta go eat dinner.
Oh yeah, it's getting late.
Yeah. 5:23 on my coast. Because that
Mm-hmm.
makes it what, 8:23 on your coast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me,
There
that's
you go.
pajama time these days. Get sleepy by 9. Oh. Well, man. Yeah, I hope it for listeners. I hope our loving critique does not dissuade you. This is it's an awesome book, and there are. I think it's I don't know, for me, like with the critique type stuff with this guy, like I want him to keep writing, and I want him to
Mhm.
continue to grow because he's amazing.
Yeah.
And
And I will say this, I'm actually really looking forward to the next one.
mm, yeah,
Partly because the scope will inevitably narrow slightly after the this floor. It
action.
just sort of has to, right?
Yeah, like the next time it's big like that should be the 12th floor with the
Yep.
ascendancy, right?
Yep.
I, you know, I hope they get to the 15th floor. I don't know how many of the books he's had in me, but in the book six, they went more into Sheol with the demons and stuff, and they talked
Mhm.
about how no
Nobody's ever
crawlers
gotten
have
that
ever.
far. Yeah.
And then the final boss, Galapendria or whatever,
Yeah.
on level 18. Like, yeah, I'm curious to see keeps going.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a joy. It's like an early Christmas is how I feel. I've been reading it in all my free time, and it's so good, man. And it's got that thing where you'll go back and read the scene again just because so you don't miss something. Like any scene with the AI. Like remember when the AI was the dog thing?
Hmm.
Yeah, like I had to reread that a couple times. Like, what are you talking about? This is important, maybe.
Yeah.
I hope it's important.
Yeah.
Um,
It was a bit important. I almost chose vodka. You're talking about when he comes in to the room
oh
drinking.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
fun. I
He's
actually went back and
massaging
I was like, what was he drinking? And then
yeah.
I was like, because I noted that he was drinking, and I was like, hold on, I got to back up a few pages. No, it was vodka, and I didn't want to do that. So, you know, here I am with whiskey.
That would have been a
Yeah,
good little theme there.
yeah, it
Um,
was a that was an interesting scene. That's yeah, that scene revealed a lot. I think it's pretty good.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Fleshed out Orin a little bit. So many good things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
All
well shoot,
right.
man. Yeah, I feel like that's all we can talk about before getting into spoilers.
I agree.
I just wanna go finish now, but it's great hanging with you, man.
Yeah.
And
Likewise.
listeners, thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you for listening to Drams and Dragons. Hope
Yeah.
you have a good night, and hope to see you on the next one.
And you guys stay gold. Stay gold, everybody. Stay gold. Ooh, it's the triple. The triple. I don't know if the triple works.